Welcome back to Joe Stunner Boxing. I've just watched Dan Rafael being interviewed on Boxing King Media, I think it's called. It's an interview with Dan Rafael. It lasts about 15 minutes. I'll leave a link in the description box so you can go and have a look at it. But Rafael is claiming that Dillian Whyte failed several tests, or there were several adverse findings from different tests. Now, the way he explained it, and this is, I will take this as gospel truth. The way that VADA do things, according to Rafael, is that if you sign up for VADA, you are obliged to be tested whenever they decide. So let's say they test you on a Monday, they take that to the lab. It takes a couple of weeks to get sorted, to get the results back. Then they come back on the Friday, they test you again, that goes off to the lab, that will take another couple of weeks, and then let's say they test you Wednesday. So over a 10-day period they've done 3 tests, all have been sent to the lab, and all are they will come back. What he's claiming is 3 tests came back positive. It was hot. So this probably all comes from the same cycle of steroid use or performance enhancing drugs. Not all performance enhancing drugs are steroids, but you know what I mean. If you do 3 tests in, say, 10 days, they're tested, they are taken to the lab separately. You get back the results for all 3, maybe a few days apart, but probably all 3 of those hot tests will come from the same cycle of use. So that's what Rafael is saying. I'm not saying he's right. I'm not saying that his information is correct. So we have to sort of put a little asterisk by this. However, if it is true, you have to ask, well, where does Dillian Whyte go from here? Is his career essentially over? Because, you know, he's 35. He's got a lot of miles on the clock. He's been knocked out twice, 2 uppercut knockouts in his last 4 fights. He last fought last year, back in November. That was against Franklin. If he's going to try and, you know, quote unquote, prove his innocence, that's going to take a long, long time, months, you would think. If he can't get out of it, or if he can't prove his innocence, or whatever the case is, because I don't have any inside information, I'm not privy to any inside information. But let's say they say that the ruling bodies, what's the word I'm looking for? You know, not the governing bodies, not the WBC and that lot. I'm talking about, you know, the people that license you, the licensing bodies. If they decide, well, actually, no, you're guilty, what are they going to give him? A 2-year ban, 3-year ban? Well, that takes him up to probably being close to about 38. And I know he's a heavyweight, but that's not young by anyone's standards. Especially when you've got a lot of wear and tear on your body. And I know that as the older you get, sometimes it pays to have longer breaks to let your body sort of relax and repair, and it takes longer for the body to repair anyway, the older you get, as some of us know. But, you know, that may be a good thing. But to be out of the ring for a period of what could end up being, you know, 3 years, maybe even more, you've got to ask, well, where does Dillian go from here? And of course, he may well be open to a long ban, because I know that the Rivas thing, he was more or less, you know, again, quote unquote, cleared. Okay, fair enough. And I know that the first ban he had, the 2-year ban at the start of his career, was for an over-the-counter supplement, and you know, fair enough. But he was, from what I've read, and again, I've read this in several places. I'm not saying it's absolute gospel truth, but I think when he was a kickboxer, he also popped hot for steroids or for some performance enhancing drug. So to put it mildly, he's got form for this, and you can say there's no smoke without fire. And what are the chances of him being completely innocent throughout his entire career? You know, and of course, you know, he may take stuff and not realise he's taking it. That is possible. That's always possible. But this is why, if you piss hot, that should be it. That's a fact. If you piss hot, it's a fact. It doesn't matter whether you knew what you were taking. If we're going to be serious about taking on PEDs and steroids and so on, you've got to say, if it's a test that's, you know, if it comes back as a positive test, okay, what are you hiring your crew for? What are you hiring your nutritionist, your dietitian and so on? These are people that should be looking out for you. And if you test positive, sorry, whether you knew you were putting it in your body or not, we're serious about drugs, and you should be serious about drugs, serious enough to make sure you know what's going in your body. So no, you're banned. And I'm not someone who usually says lifetime bans, although someone like Gerald Miller, who's a multiple steroid and PED user and has been busted, for doing cycles left, right and more cycles than Lance Armstrong, someone like that should be kicked out of the sport, in my opinion. But I believe in taking each and every case individually, looking at the evidence, looking at their previous conduct, previous tests and so on and so forth. Look, whichever way you slice and dice it, don't look good for Dillian. And I can see him being out of the ring unless he gets lucky, unless he really can prove his innocence, or that it was contaminated or whatever, which I think is extremely unlikely. He's going to be out of the ring until he's about 38. So you could say that his career may well be over, at least at the highest level, at least with the big paychecks. And is Eddie Hearn going to want to work with him? I mean, he had that business with Rivas. He promoted that one. Frank Warren, I mean, is it worth the risk? This is what Dimitri Salita was saying about Gerald Miller. Well, he served his ban and so on, and he's licensed to fight. Well, I don't think he served his ban, nowhere near it. Plus the fact, just because you've got a license in one of the states that in boxing terms is out in the boonies, it don't necessarily mean that you're entitled to be given gigs on promotional cards. Why should promoters take a risk on you? Why should the punter take a risk on you, especially with a pay-per-view fight? So I think this is very, very grim for Dillian, very grim, especially if Rafael is right and these are multiple tests that he's failed. But yeah, it's a shame, but it is what it is, and they're still looking for a replacement. Look, if you've got any opinions, comments below as usual, and I'll answer them. And subscribe to the channel if you're new, please do. It helps us spread the word about Joe Stunner Boxing, and of course like the video if you liked it. And yeah, thanks very much for your time as always, and bye for now.